Hello everyone, it's Friday, time for another Friday Reads. So I read quite a few audiobooks this week actually, so let's start with those. The first one I finished is The Empire of Gold by Esi Chakraborty. And this one is the last book in the Devabad trilogy, which is a fantasy series based on Arab and Egyptian culture. And I really enjoyed this one. The whole trilogy was great actually. We follow Nahari, who is she at the beginning of the story she thought she was human, but then she discovers that it belongs to the jinn world and she has healing powers, and she goes to Devabad, who is the jinn city. There she gets tied into a lot of political intrigue and the different tribes within the jinns and how they interact with each other, and I thought that was very interesting. I have to say my favorite one was still the second one, but because I tend to like the fantasies that are like more everyday. Like also in Harry Potter, I liked when they were going to class and doing their homework more than the actual battle things, and this one is very focusing on the last battle. But even though that was the case, I still enjoyed it a lot. I really like the characters and the world that Esi Chakraborty built in this story. So if you're looking for a fantasy, a bit more of a light reading in these hard times, I would recommend that one. The second one that I finished in audiobook is Your House Will Pay by Steph Cha, and this one followed a Korean family in the US and this black family in the US, and it turns out that the woman on the Korean family shot the girl in the black family. That happened years before this story actually happens, and the one of the Korean daughters did not know, because this happened before she was born, and she slowly finds out about this. For me, in terms of the story and the commentary, this is all what Such a Fun Age wanted to be but wasn't, because it does look at racism in a much more complex way. There are many gray boundaries, because we see this a lot of the story from this Korean woman's point of view, the daughter of the one that shot the black teenager, and she loves her mother, but at the same time she does think that what she did is horrible, and we can see how she's trying to fit things in that narrative, and also the fact that this teenager girl, she was not the typical one that you might find in these stories, that she's silent and everything happens to her. She talked back and she was trying to steal things, and you know that the narrative is a lot more complex. It shows the complexities of it, and that's not me saying that this teenage girl should have been shot because she was being loud and she was maybe stealing something. Of course nobody should die for that, but it's not that clear cut that she was the perfect girl and then she got shot because she was black. She got shot. That is all true, but there's more complexity to that, and I think the book portrays that complexity, that nobody's always good or always bad, but there is all these things going into play that we all have to consider when we look at the stories. And for me at least it did give that message quite well. With that said, I did not love the process of reading this book. I think the pacing was a bit off, and the things that the author chose to show and the way that she chose to tell the story did not gel with me completely. So the narrative style was not my favorite, but I think the social commentary is quite nonsense and quite interesting to read. And I would love to know, if you have read it, what did you think about the story, because I think it's quite an interesting one. And then those are the ones that I read in audiobook. Right now I'm listening to The Murmur of the Beast by Sofia Segovia. I have about 2 hours left, so not very much. And this one I'm also loving. So it follows a family in Mexico in the beginning of the 20th century, so 900, early 900s. And it follows the war that was there at that time. Then there was the Spanish flu, and the part of the Spanish flu I found really accurate to what we have now, despite 100 years have been passed and we have a lot more technology and still we make the same mistakes. So yeah, that was interesting. And then now they are also facing the government trying to take the lands of the landowners. And we focus on this family because they adopted kind of this boy that was followed constantly since he was born by a bunch of bees, and the bees seem to tell him what is happening in the world. So it has that magical realism feeling that many Latin American literature has. And yeah, I'm really liking that one. As I said, I have a couple of hours left to listen to, so I will probably do that today. But the physical things that I read, I finished 3 books. The first one is Half-Blood Blues by Esi Edugyan. And this one follows, it has 2 timelines. So one timeline is in late 1930s, 1931 I think, and the other one is in 1992. And we follow the story of this man who was a jazz player. He's American, but he decided to move to Berlin, and there he meets this boy who is a German black man, and it explains, which I didn't know, that apparently in the Rhine region, after the First World War, it was given from Germany to the French, and instead of the French sending their own people, they sent people from the colonies that they had in Africa. So there were a lot of black people living in that area, and then when that area was given back to Germany, those were they became Germans, but they were black, even though Germany did not have a lot of colonies in Africa. And this boy was one of them, and he's very talented in jazz. So our protagonist is jealous, and does something at the time that he later regrets, and we see those timelines when he does it in 39 and in 1992 when he goes back to Berlin trying to find out what actually happened to this boy and what the consequences of his actions were. And I think the idea was really good, but again, I think the pacing of this did not work for me. The constant going back and forth did not work for me, and I think that some parts of the story were developed much more than I needed them to be, and some other parts were not developed nearly enough, which made me, all of those things made me not be able to connect to the characters as much as I wanted. So this one was a bit of a disappointment for me, because I had read Washington Black from the same author, and I liked that one much more than this one. I still did have some issues with that one, trying to connect to some of the characters, but I think that the story, the way it's told, it's much better than this one. This one goes a bit too much back and forth. But yeah, I still liked it. I as I said, I learned things about the black people living in Germany that I did not know. So yeah. Then the next one that I read in physical form, it was actually an ebook, and it's Who Do You Serve, Who Do You Protect? And this is by several authors. It's a collection of essays by different writers about, basically the first part is about police brutality in the US, and then in the second part it gives some initiatives that are trying to fight that phenomenon. And I think that this one was a very powerful one. I got it for free back in June or something. They were giving this one for free, I guess as a consequence of the Black Lives Matter protests. And I think this is really, really informative. I didn't know much about the police brutality besides the fact that it was happening. And this discuss in detail what are the consequences for the people that suffer from it, and several cases that happen that I did not know about, and how brutal it is. It's crazy that these things are happening. It also gives some perspective on what can be done and what can work and what cannot work, and the fact that white people often think that improving the police is the solution, when if you look at it, actually there are many instances that there is no reason for the police to be there. Like if there was an example that a person with mental health issues that was in a mental health hospital because of those issues. I don't know if they mention exactly if it was autism or it was some kind of developmental issue. This person couldn't interact in the way that the police was expecting them to, so when they told that person to stop, maybe they will start screaming or something like that. And there was this person from the mental health institution that was coming to help, but they didn't let him help. And yeah, it just questions, like, why is the police there in the first place? If this person has left the mental hospital, shouldn't they come with maybe an ambulance or some other kind of health experts that can actually make this person understand the situation better rather than the police? And instead of trying to train the police on all these different kinds of situations, just don't call the police. So yeah, it was very informative and very interesting, and I'm very, very glad that I read it. I don't know if it's still for free, but if it is, I would recommend you go check it out, because it was really, really good. Yeah, and I think that this one will be very good to pair with Bryan Stevenson's Just Mercy, because How Do You Serve, How Do You Protect focuses more on the police part of the issue, whereas Just Mercy focuses more on the legal side of it. So once the police takes you to jail, then you have to go to trial, and Just Mercy focuses on the trial. And so they are two different aspects of the same problem, and I think that they pair very well together. So yeah, I would recommend both. I read this one as part of Nonfiction November. This one was my discovery prompt. I think it's still the first one that I have read for Nonfiction November, but don't worry, I have plans to read many others this week. But before we go to that, I wanted to show you the last one that I finished, which is The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. This is the story of Lale and Gita. So Lale was a Slovakian that was sent to Auschwitz, and by chance almost he became the tattooist. So every person that goes to a concentration camp, they were given numbers, and they were tattooed the numbers on their arms, and Lale was the one doing that. So as a prisoner, because he had that job, which was considered to be a very important job, he was given extra food and better sleeping places. And while he is in there, he meets Gita, who is another of the prisoners, and he it's basically following the everyday life in Auschwitz and that romance that develops with Gita, and what happens after the war ended and Auschwitz was liberated in a way. And for me, this one was just okay. I think the story was okay. It was interesting enough. It's very short, and at least in this copy, it has huge margins, and so it's quite fast to read. And as I said, the writing is okay, and the story is okay, but I think that it's very difficult at this point to tell a World War II story or a Holocaust story that we have not heard before. So yeah, in that sense, this was nothing Especially, it is horrible sometimes, like the things that they do to the prisoners, but it never went into much depth into the horrors of it, and it also didn't go in much depth into any specific thing. So for me, this was just a standard Holocaust novel, if that is a thing. So yeah, and I already told you about the Murmur of the Beast, which is what I'm currently reading, and the other thing that I'm currently reading is Caste by Isabel Wilkerson, and this one has the thesis that basically race in America works the same as any other caste system, like the caste system that you can find in other cultures like India or whatever, because you are born into it and you don't have a say on it, and you just you are given less opportunities in life just because you are born that way. And in the case of America, the indicators the color of your skin, as for example in India is your last name or something like that, but the consequences of it are the same. And this is a very interesting one. I knew that that was the topic, and I was very interested in the topic, but what I did not know about this book is how snarky and how sarcastic can be at times, and I'm really enjoying it. It's very easy to read. I was expecting it to be a lot more dense than it actually is. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that one, and I'm hoping to finish it this weekend. But yeah, if you have not picked it up, I'm really liking it, so maybe you'll like it too. And this one was also for Nonfiction November for the prompt of Buzz. So now the things that I'm planning to read next week, they are a lot, so it's more of a pile of possibilities than an actual TBR. So the thing is, the week after next week, it's Hibernation, which Simon from Savage Reads organized. And this is all the books that I want to read this month that do not fit in that. I don't know if I will read them all, but yeah, I will try. So yeah, we will see how far I get. The first one I have here is The Ungrateful Refugee by Dina Nayeri, and this one is basically just about her experiences as a refugee and some interviews that she also had with other refugees. And I did not know this, but I have read like the preface now, and I think it happens in the Netherlands. I might be wrong about that, but I thought it was America or the UK, because these things are always in America or the UK, but this one looks like it might actually happen in the Netherlands, or has some information about the Netherlands, which I'm very interested about, because a couple of weeks ago I read 2 Blankets, 3 Sheets, which is also about the refugee experience in the Netherlands, but that one was not that well written, and I'm hoping this one is better written. So yeah, I'm excited for this one. And then the next one I want to read is Black and British, Forgotten History by David Olusoga. This is basically the story of black people in the UK from the beginning. Like, it basically shows that black people have been there for a very, very long time. It's not like they all came in the Windrush generation. I was supposed to read this with Emma from A Cup of Books, but unfortunately she's really busy now because she got a new job. That's not the unfortunate part, but yeah, she got a new job, so we cannot read this together. She doesn't have the time, so I'm just going to read by myself. And I forgot to say this one is also for the Buzz prompt, and this one is for the time prompt because it's history. And then the last one for my Nonfiction November TBR that I want to read is the one for movement, and that's Viaja Portugal by José Saramago. And yeah, that's basically just the thoughts of José Saramago on Portugal. I'm hoping that this one is kind of cozy and kind of nostalgic for me, because, well, I'm not from Portugal, but I'm from Spain, which is relatively similar culturally, so I'm hoping that this one will be cozy for me. And then there are another two fiction books that I want to read next week. The first one is The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abi Daré, and this one is about a girl that that is married sort of by force to a much older man as a third wife, and how she's supposed to be quiet but she's not. I have heard great things about this one, and I want to do an African recommendations video. Let me know if you're interested in that. So I want to read this one before I do that video, so I'm hoping to read that this week. And then the last one I want to read, that is fiction, is Paradise by Toni Morrison, and this is because it's the pick for Barter Horse book club this month, which is discussed on the 22nd, so I should probably read it this week so I can discuss it with all the people. I don't know anything about this, what it is about or anything, but it's Toni Morrison, so it's probably going to be good. So yeah, those are all the books I wanted to talk to you about today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you're reading. If you have read any of these books and what you thought about them. And until next video, bye!